Hi, and welcome to the Super Anti-Aging Podcast with myself, Steve Halpern. It's so wonderful to see so many people involved around the world in this longevity movement. Lots of great podcasts out there, lots of great YouTube videos, and I'm really so happy to be part of this community where we can share this information and really hopefully make a difference in this health field. You know, the whole concept of medicine is really turning around. And what do I mean by that? Well, the idea of not getting to the real source of the condition, which is cellular. And instead of going to the core, we start from the top. Let's treat the symptom. And let's treat the symptom individually. So we treat your thyroid, we treat your kidney, we treat your liver, well, you know, your brain, whatever. It's all connected. It's all about cells. It's all about how cells are functioning. It's about all the microbiome cells that are there. They make up the tissue. And the tissue makes up the organ. And the organ works, hopefully, in symphony with the system. So a lot of longevity science medicine really is getting to look at the basis, the cells. And what's happening is the idea of reprogramming cells. I mean, David Sinclair, whole theory of loss of information inside the cell. And so now we're looking at DNA repair, and we're looking at apoptosis programs, cell death, and autophagy, and cleaning out the cells, and of course the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. There's lots of videos on it, and there's lots of information on it, but let me give an update, because it's so key. I'm speaking on my cell phone right now, which is kind of amazing that you can do this. And I have all sorts of applications on this phone. What happens if the battery in my phone is going bad? I'll get a little warning. Applications are not going to be working well because low battery. Well, what happens when your cells have low battery? Your applications in your body don't start to work. Your immune system, your brain, your eyes, your muscles, doesn't matter. Every single cell in the body has these powerhouses. They're electrical. And we need that energy. And as people age, unfortunately, less efficient cell batteries. They don't replenish themselves. You don't get the same quality of what we call mitogenesis, new mitochondria. So, are there things to do? Yes. And you try not to damage your mitochondria where possible. And certainly chemicals, pesticides. How about that one? Pesticides. Heavy metals. Certainly the ones we know, you know, the smoking and the excessive alcohol. They'll cause damage to the mitochondria. Having certain nutrition deficiencies where the mitochondria can't function the way they should. Things like Q10 and magnesium and a whole list of things we often test for to see what might be missing. You know, this whole idea of, again, turning this field upside down in the idea that we looked at originally food that might be missing things because it was processed and refined. And then if you look at food labels, there are things that have been added because they tested in things in the refining process, so they added iron and iodine and things, but in minimal levels. So we got into this whole idea of food fortification, and then they came up with the idea of a multivitamin. Well, a lot of it was marketing, even though we were in the era, and this is really profound, we were in the era of discovering vitamins and synthesizing vitamins, and it was very, very dramatic that you could cure, vitamin-related diseases like beriberi, horrible disease, and pellagra. People would go, they'd be locked up in mental institutions. The 3Ds: diarrhea, dementia, and death. Well, interesting, as my brain is thinking about this, pellagra, dementia, could it be, even though we fortify our foods, there could be a deficiency? Well, now we're learning that there's this whole business of, do you have problems, genetic problems, converting certain vitamins into their active form? Maybe you have a problem with pyridoxine, okay, vitamin B6, and you're not making pyridoxine 6-phosphate, or thiamine, or folic acid, a big one. You're not converting the methotetrahydrofolate. So the science of gene analysis is wonderful in this area, so that you could find out not only, measuring just blood levels of vitamins might be enough, because are they the active form? As a side note, and this one really gets to me all the time, magnesium. Well, I had a blood test, and the blood test looked fine, or even a red blood cell magnesium. No. Because only 1%, 99% of the magnesium is in the cell. So you're only looking at 1%. And even red blood cells, because of the turnover, it's not a really accurate test. We don't have an accurate test right now for magnesium. They're looking at all sorts of fancy tests, but nothing really available right now to measure your magnesium levels. So I tell people, go by function. If you're getting leg cramping, good sign. Can you hurt yourself with magnesium? Not unless you're taking, intravenous and you have kidney problems. Or you take a lot of magnesium, citrate of magnesia, and then you're going to go to the bathroom. But no, you're not going to run into a problem. And surveys have shown, because of the food supply, we're just not getting enough magnesium, because it's not particularly added to the soil, the fertilizer. Because of so many, other ingredients we're adding, it's not there. So let me continue, because let me get back to the original topic, which is cellular aging. So because of the gene studies, so important, we're going to learn how to have all the right nutrients for your mitochondria, for your cells. Something I've talked about before in these podcasts, which is in the area of biohacking, but I wish it was into mainstream, is methylene blue. Methylene blue was originally developed as a dye. I think it was in 1889 or whatever. And in staining microscopes, not staining microscopes, but in using it as a stain to look at things, because you have to stain the slide, they started to use it as a dye to stain the slide, and guess what? It killed things, especially bacteria. They didn't have microscopes to look at viruses then, so it was staining bacteria, which is kind of cool. And then they got an idea, because there were no real drugs then. So you couldn't register an FDA. There was no FDA. But it was the first so-called approved drug. I don't even know how they did this, but first recognized drug. And as the years went on, they discovered that it could kill parasites. And today is even a standard treatment, 2 days for malaria. And so from a high-dose medicinal point of view, it's interesting. And in most emergency rooms, they have it for carbon monoxide poisoning and cyanide poisoning. And it's fascinating because it works on the electrical. Now I'm getting back to the topic which I was talking about, the mitochondria. It works on the electrical system of the mitochondria. That back and forth, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, back and forth, back and forth. So it's an alternating kind of current. We call it reduction and oxidation. Fascinating. Just like vitamin C going from reduced to oxidized, and glutathione going from reduced to oxidized, back and forth, back and forth. And in fact, it seems to help support glutathione, the major cellular antioxidant. And at low dose, it's totally different than at high dose. At high dose, methylene blue is an antioxidant. And no secret, because I don't like to keep secrets, I think in the future it's going to be recognized as a major longevity compound. Trick is how do you use it, and the trick is what do you take with it to support your system. If you're taking methylene blue, some people might need nitric oxide support, folic acid support, glutathione support, vitamin C support, or, now this is another fascinating, it works on increasing the ratio of NAD, NADH. It works on helping that whole increase in NAD inside the cells, which is where the whole N&M comes in. I didn't realize, I was listening the other day, that N&M now is $2 billion industry worldwide. Well, I guess thanks to David Sinclair. So taking methylene blue, I think, can be really helpful. And I think taking N&M with the methylene blue could be really helpful. And what I've observed so far in my limited experience of using it with people is increased energy and increased cognitive functioning. And because it increases serotonin. Yes, serotonin, that happy chemical that we want. People doing pot, cannabis. I live in New York. It's become a cannabis city, increasing serotonin. In fact, we know that because one of the warnings is if you're taking an antidepressant, which increases serotonin, you might not want to take a high dose of methylene blue, because you can get a serotonin syndrome. Not a good thing. But it seems from the practitioners that I'm getting feedback from my own in general, and I'll do like they do on those YouTubes and commercials. This is not medical advice, and ask your practitioner, ask your physician. I'm sure your physician might know about it. Or take your chances. Well, I think that if you do have any medical conditions or if you're on medication, you do want to consult a health practitioner. But it definitely is an addition, and I think it can make a real difference. So, can we reverse aging? Maybe. Really deeply involved, and people want information on the age test. And in simple terms, let me explain how they basically work. If you have a disc, remember those discs? And you could put scratches on the disc. Well, that's what seems to happen in our bodies. Okay, you get scratches. And these scratches can be called methylation marks. So we're measuring methylation marks inside the cells. I'm not quite sure where. I think on the genes, or I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of like super technical. But basically that's the concept. And then you can measure telomere length. And you can measure, this is the big one, speed of aging. And I've had some nice feedback from clients. I had one client who I've been working with quite a long time. She's 86 years old, Vivian, and she was 12 years. I'm not going to tell her age. Just say she was a senior up there. 12 years younger biologically than chronologically. Almost 14 years in her immune system. Her immune system was 14 years younger than her chronological age. And she was aging at somewhere like 1/20th of the population her age. So that was intervention. So I'm really getting excited about having these markers to see if what you're doing is working. Is and if it's not working, why? Is it that you have something we can fix, or you can fix, or in our practice you can fix? Test for something missing, some toxins, some underlying infections you don't know about that are affecting this. Because the magic is if you get to slowing down, revitalizing those cells, hopefully you can avoid those age-related conditions. I always ask clients who come in who have a problem, did you have it 4 years ago? Did you have it 5 years ago? Why? Why now? Why as you got older? And I've noticed that you almost sometimes don't even have to do an age test. You can look and say, wow, you look much older than your age. And then you say, why? Well, it's easy to see skin cells, they're aging. And so it's very, very exciting. And by the way, some really, really good studies on methylene blue and aging skin cells. There's a disease called progeria where kids, unfortunately, die at 12, 13 years old as they rapidly age. And a wonderful scientist was experimenting with methylene blue and found that it retarded this aging that these kids were getting with progeria. So there's been some interesting research now on methylene blue being a rejuvenating factor, maybe in skin cells, and maybe even protecting from sun damage. And of course, a whole other area is the idea of red light therapy and methylene blue, especially and it's not the only topic of this, but in cancers, because the methylene blue at high dose will be a pro-oxidant and can possibly have a positive effect on killing cancer cells. So again, this field is so exciting. I try and keep up every day. Every day there's some new information, because it's a huge prize. I think it's $100 million a prize for the group that can come up with something really definitive and prove it. And I think part of the reason is because we want eventually the pharmaceutical industry to recognize, and the FDA to recognize, aging as a disease. And once then, maybe there can be a pill that can make a difference. So check out the website. I also have a group on Facebook called Super Anti-Aging. Let's share your experiences. I'll share my experience both personally and in our practice. And so, think young and stay healthy.